Hey everyone, welcome to the Dankest Dungeon. My name's Jason. To my left, we got Jackson.
Hello there.
We have a new guest over here, Brittany.
Hello.
And of course, Matt.
Of course.
So today we're going to be reviewing all the Magic cards that have different frames and different borders. I'm going to put an asterisk by every because I'm sure we missed some. There were so many. Let's go, starting with Classic.
So these were the first things ever printed, obviously. That's why they're the classics. I imagine that this is how a lot of people, at least certainly back in the day, got introduced to the game. And I imagine that at least a part of the popularity of it came from how these cards looked and how they felt in your hand and all that fun stuff. So, yeah.
I would say I don't like the Classic as much as the newer cards.
Heathen.
I'm going to start off with a solid 3 for these.
I'm gonna give it a 4. I've always liked the classic looks.
For me, I would rate it about a 3, and that's mostly because of the artifacts. I love the old brown border artifacts. It makes it look classic, it makes it look antique, and that's more of a 3 rating for me. So if I can find an old border or a classic artifact, I'm going to go with that one.
Like I said, these are the cards that a lot of us, including myself, were introduced to the game with. It's possible that my nostalgia kind of ups the rating a little bit, but I would say that this is like kind of my default if this is available and there isn't anything like spectacular that's better. I'm probably going to put this into my decks, so I would say that this is kind of a 4 for me. Given that Wizards has started reprinting the old border, even though the new border exists and all these other treatments exist. Obviously, there's a demand for it elsewhere as well. I will say, Corbin also doesn't like it.
Starting off with a solid 14 for Classic. Moving on, we have Classic White Border. I think almost everyone universally likes these less. Should they get a 1? They're going to get a 2 because sometimes they're fun just to trigger people.
That was my thoughts exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3. I'm too used to the black border. The black border sits a bit better on the card art overall.
I'm going to go with the 1. 2, like you mentioned earlier, if you're specifically putting them in to trigger or tilt people at the table because it's more interesting and fun, especially when you're doing things like stacks, because it just adds an extra level.
Sure.
But yeah, I would say definitely a 1, 2 for specific reasons.
Okay, we'll put a 1, but it's technically a 1.5.
So, a little bit of historical context around this one. These originally showed up in Unlimited. Wizards wanted a way to kind of make a distinction that these were reprints, that these were not the first printing of any of these cards. Allegedly, and I wasn't there or anything, there were some disagreements about that within Wizards itself. The art director said that they didn't like it because it kind of washed the colors out. And I think, like Jason said, the general consensus is, yes, people don't really like them.
It draws your eye to the border instead of the card.
My rating of white border, I think I would probably put it 2. I do like trolling people, for one thing. The other time that I use white border, there were some sets that were only printed in white border. Not very many at this point, but like Portal Through Kingdoms, for instance, was only white border. All of my dual lands are white border, so if I'm playing dual lands, I will frequently, in Legacy at least, use white border basics to kind of match with them.
I have considered a time or two of painting the borders of my entire deck white.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not unique in that.
You can also have the card sleeves with a black border frame or a white border frame. It saves your hand on painting all those.
That's a good alternative. And then we have the modern frame. I like these a lot. These are kind of my go-to whenever I'm building a deck. When I'm building decks, I usually try to have the whole thing match. Obviously, most of the cards come in this frame, so it's easiest to do with these. I'm going to give these a 4.
It's just a really sleek look, and I do appreciate that Wizards goes through a bit more of the detailing around some of the borders of the cards, like with artifacts having that slight metallic sheen along just before where the border is, or the red cards having that red sort of crackle look to it. It kind of loses a couple points for me because the whole card doesn't go full hog with it. I'm still going to give it a 3 because it looks good.
For me, it's also going to be a 3. For me, the modern is more classic. I started playing Magic later, so like most of my cards that you started out with are a modern frame. It is, to me, more the classic than the classic. I still prefer the brown artifacts versus the silver artifacts of the newer modern one, but it is what it is.
Modern Frame was first introduced 8th edition, which was a white border set, amusingly. and then subsequently into Mirrodin. It was actually kind of interesting. If you go back and you look at any of the modern border cards that were printed before Fifth Dawn, which was the third set in the Mirrodin block, and you look at the artifacts, the coloration on them is actually a lot lighter, and they ended up changing that for Fifth Dawn because people were not as easily able to tell the difference between the white and the artifact cards at a glance.
I don't know, but I imagine there's probably lots of small variations in this
Yeah,
border.
over
'Cause
time.
as you go through Moxfield and you're building your deck, you can see not all the cards look quite the same.
Yeah, they the what we have on the screen here, they changed the border slightly around, I want to say M15 or Cons of Tarkir. I probably should have looked this up before we recorded, but the kind of black part on the bottom was not as thick. The color went all the way down on the sides, and there was a little bit more color on the bottom on the previous version of this. My rating for these, I would put them at a 3. I do like the slightly older versions better than the newer, thicker, chunkier versions. I don't know. It seems very, like this is the generic card art or card border. If I have no other choices, I will go with it, but I'm not excited about it.
Okay, that actually puts the black modern border at a 13, one below the classic. But then we have modern white border.
Hell yeah.
I don't like these at all. I think these are the newest ones that came out. This is from Foundations.
This is from Mystery Booster
Oh.
Convention Edition 2.
That's right.
Like I said, they changed the border slightly recently. I think these are the first set with the newer, thicker border.
Yeah, at the bottom it has the more fierce,
Yeah.
more aggressive curves of the white coming up the side, which I think makes me like them even less than what you said, the ones from
Yeah.
8th edition.
8th edition and all that.
I'm going to give these a 2.
I'm going to agree and give it also a 2. The black border is just a bit too synonymous with the modern look that it doesn't look good.
I'm gonna go lower. I don't like them. It makes it look like the card is just unfinished. The black adds that framing for the art, and it's gonna be a 1. I just don't like the white border here.
Yeah, it almost looks like a mistake. Like
Yeah.
the printing press plate for black around the edge.
The
didn't
black
hit.
hides a lot of those miscuts and everything.
yeah.
The white just makes them stand out and glare at you in the face even more.
Like I said, one of the concerns that they had with the white border was that it kind of washed out the art, and you can see that on full display here. Something we didn't mention the last time we had white border up was that, at least in regular sets, none of the white border sets had foils that were also white border. Every time, if you go back and you look at 7th edition foils, which was the first core set that had foils, the reason why those are all so expensive is because they were actually black border. They didn't foil out the white borders. I think I had read at some point that they had some kind of production issue where they couldn't do it in a way that looked remotely decent, so they just didn't. This modern white border I would put down to a 1. I'm not trying to match any cool old cards with it, and just the amount of white is pretty bad. I do have a legacy burn deck that is all different arts and borders and things to troll people, and I do have the chain lightning from this in there because it's funny to me, but the rest of the time, probably not.
For this set, did they do foils on the whites in this?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I imagine it just wouldn't show as anything almost.
I've done foil peels and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
And it is just glaring. It is like you have a shiny mirror around the outside of
Oh,
the card.
interesting.
It is very, very distracting.
Yeah, and I imagine that there's probably some conflict with the silver bordered cards, which we're not covering today because they're not tournament legal.
All right, moving on. That takes us to Future Sight. So this is a different frame entirely, supposed to look futuristic. I used to really hate these. These new ones that are coming out, though, they're the same, but I like them more for some reason. I don't know why.
I think it's a lot of the coloring.
Oh, okay.
It's more pigmented and it picks up the card art more than the originals and stuff did.
I don't know. I still don't like them. I think I'm going to give them, I would go with a 2.5, rounding down to a 2.
I do really appreciate that they did something so extremely different with these frames. They don't really feel like a Magic card frame. They feel like something from some other
Worst game.
Worst game.
You're gonna get a lot of that as we go through here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't look bad necessarily. Like you said, Jason, they kind of match up with the new arts a bit better than how they did in the older arts, but they still don't look great to me. I'm gonna give them a 2.
When I first started playing, when I had somebody use this against me or play this on the other field, it is okay. What does that do? What is the mana cost? Because it's not in the same spot as you would normally be looking, so it doesn't really look like a magic card to me when you first start playing. So it can cause a lot of confusion with newer players. I'm gonna give it a 2 because I do like the little bit of the framing and the coloration, but it does cut off a lot of the artwork. It just feels like it cuts off.
Yeah, these were originally printed in the Future Sight set, and the whole theme behind that block, the Time Spiral block, was the first set. Time Spiral had cards from the past. They had time shifted cards that were all like cards from before the modern border, I think. And then Planar Chaos was like an alternate present where they had some of the cards that they had already printed, but they changed like the colors and stuff to be cool. And then Future Sight had a bunch of cards from the future. And these cards were allegedly like cards from future sets most of the time, in theory, even though they only had like 2 or 3 sets planned out, and most of these cards were not a part of them. So they kind of wanted to make them distinct in a way to show that like these cards could be coming up and we might switch the borders again, which they didn't. For my rating, it's probably mostly based on nostalgia, but I'm going to give it a 3. I do kind of like them. The fact that the mana cost is in a different place makes it annoying for sorting, but the fact that they have a indicator in the top left that says what type of card they are
I
without
did
having
not
to look
even
at the
notice that.
yeah. There's a reason that like it's not something that they really carried into the main games because no one really noticed, oh, that slash means it's a creature and the chalice means that it's an artifact and all that. But I do really like that. It's really good for sorting. And if you are a user of Moxfield, you will actually see those symbols for those different types on your Moxfield page.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's where they took them from.
Okay, that gives Future Sight a 9, beating out both white border sets.
For good reason, probably.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have the Masterpiece series. Do you have any history on this, Matt?
Yeah, I'll just kind of go through all 3 of them at once here. So you can kind of consider the original Zendikar to be the first Masterpiece set, even though it didn't have any actual new cards or new masterpieces. What they did is that in each of the packs, they had a chance to have what was called hidden treasures, which is you could find like a dual land or a original Mox or some other like expensive card that they just had lying around in Wizards, and like, oh, we'll stick these in packs. They stuck them in there probably to boost sales as kind of like a tactic, but it did well. I mean, I don't know if that necessarily rose sales as much as it needed to because they were also printing enemy fetches for the first time in that set, and that probably also drove sales. Obviously, you can't do that for every set, but fast forward to the next time they brought Zendikar back. For Zendikar... Oh, no.
Rising?
No.
Return to Zendikar. Easy.
Probably, actually.
Oh, what's it for real?
It would probably return to Zendikar.
Is that actually a set? I just made it up.
Battle for Zendikar.
Oh, okay.
So when they went back to Zendikar for Battle for Zendikar, I assumed that they're like, oh, well, we did this hidden treasures last time. Let's do some hidden treasures in here. But you can't just like conjure reserve list cards out of thin air. So they, I guess, came up with something new and interesting, which was in very limited quantities, you can theoretically find these really interesting looking Masterpiece cards with a different border, and they're all foily and they got alternate art, and some of the cards are new and a lot of the cards are old and not necessarily legal and standard. So that's what they did there. I guess it drove sales well enough that they did it again for the next set, which was Kaladesh. So for Zendikar, they did it all for lands because it's a landfall based set. Kaladesh was all artifacts, so they did a bunch of artifacts. And then Amonkhet, they did basically instants and sorceries for the most part. There are also some enchantments in there. I don't know what their plan was after that because they stopped with Amonkhet for reasons that may become apparent once we get to those invocations. But rumor has it that they had plans to do additional masterpieces later on, and a lot of the card arts for Ixalan, which was the next set, ended up going on to promos, which is why like the Judge promo, Vampiric Tutor, and Merchant Scroll and things like that have Ixalan art.
Thank you, Matt. Here are the Zendikar Expeditions, the special lands. I can't remember. I think I liked these when they came out, but looking at them now, I can't say I am a very big fan of these. It's hard. I want to give another 2.5 here, but they're fine. We will round up to a 3.
They are pretty fine. I think a lot of the Eldrazi arts does this too with their border, where they have kind of this
Stonework.
yes
crackle.
stonework, kind of like a wasteland crackle look to it that I really appreciate, and kind of moving the subtype box down makes the art pop a little bit more. I'd give this a good solid 3.
For me, I would probably give these a 3. I like the very thin coloration around the border in the frames because it lets you know, hey, this is the colors that you're looking for without necessarily reading the text, which can be nice at a glance, or if you're going at a fast-paced game, you just see those hints of colors. So
I'm gonna have to say it's probably a 3. I do like these. Part of that is because of the exclusivity of them. Like they were for a time like kind of a premium thing that you could get. And I remember opening one from a promo pack and being like, oh, sweet, I got a Tectonic Edge. That's neat. It's hard to get your entire land base in them, which makes them kind of stick out, which is, I don't know how I feel about that. But just visually speaking, yeah, it's decent.
Yeah, they are decent. They are a solid 3 across the board, 12 total. Moving on to Kaladesh. I remember when these came out, these are the first ones I really paid attention to. I don't think I ever had any, but I think the foiling on these and the copper color was pretty good. And a lot of the artworks are super good too. I'm going to give these a 4. I like these a lot.
I kind of had the opposite reaction, mostly on the bordering. I'm not a super big fan of like the coppery color with artifacts, and the Kaladesh design for a lot of the artwork is mostly fine, but it looks a bit too delicate, especially with some of the bigger artifacts that are supposed to be made in this sort of style, like the Mana Vault or like Gearhulk Colossus. They're supposed to look big and made of this thin filigree, which doesn't always gel well in my mind. I'm still gonna give them a 3. They look fine.
my score is even lower. I'm not a huge fan. When I think artifact, I think more ancient, and having the bright coppery color, it's too new. Give it that greenish tinge, give it something to make it look more artifact like.
Rusted.
Yes. For me, they're too shiny, basically.
That's a good point. I guess if you're considering the artifact as the actual name.
The art does kind of save it a bit. I also agree with it's just too delicate. If you look at artifacts, if it's going to last that long, it's not going to be that delicate, but still a lot of the art saves it, so it's a 2 for me.
I'm going to give it a 3. I do like the art, and again, the exclusivity is pretty neat. I like the shiny, I like the gold. The issue that I have with it that keeps it from being like a 4 for me is that the original printing of this was all artifacts, and we'll get to maybe some future cases where they weren't. But if you look at any of the artifacts that they made in the first set that are not colorless, nothing on the border indicates that, apart from the mana symbols. Like, if you look at the Gear Hulks, it's just, like, the same gold. As we'll see in, like, perhaps future versions of Showcase things, they do a much better job at indicating, like, this is a red card, or this is a blue card, than the inventions do, and I gotta take some points off for that.
Okay. And moving on to the last of the Masterpiece series, Amonkhet, Invocations. These are obviously a 5.
Oh yeah, obviously.
So these are kind of supposed to be Egyptian-like. They're illegible, obviously. The design is also weird. They did do the colors that Matt likes.
Yes.
They'll probably
Yes.
give them a 5. There's the blue, yellow.
That's not the only thing about a card that I care about.
Oh,
Just
okay.
saying.
I see. I
It
see.
just helps.
I'm not a fan of how they try to make it like 3D, so it's like very deep on the etching on the columns and the shadows coming off all this stonework. And there's just a lot going on other than it being written in hieroglyph text, which makes it impossible to tell what it is.
Yeah, but Phyrexian is also written in.
I also hate those. These are getting a 1. This is a 1 for me.
This is also a 1 for me. I feel like they tried to go with something that kind of aped the classic look of that, like I mentioned before, that carved in stone sort of look, but it just came across as too busy. Like, they got the color indicator on there, which is nice, but also, yeah, it doesn't quite gel correctly. It looks like it's made of cloth and paint and stone and metalwork, and it just, no. bad.
For me, if I can give it a 0, it's getting a 0.
It needs at least a 1. They are
Then
cards
it'll
that
be a
exist.
1. As most of the statements already mentioned before, you can't read the card. If you're going to play and have somebody newer across the table, they have no idea what that does. And if you put it in like tinted sleeves or anything like that, it's like a blacked out card. You have no idea what that card is. A lot of these, the artwork in general is very dulled down. It is not bright even in foil. And yeah, it'll be a 1 for me.
This being another masterpiece, them being very difficult to, open up and all that fun stuff, gives me, collector-y vibes, which probably boosts my score a little bit, but it does look a little cheap, sort of, and obviously you can't read most of the text on there, which they fix later, which we'll get to perhaps someday. Like we mentioned before, they fix the color indicators, which is nice, but not enough to carry the card. I don't dislike them as much as I think the rest of the table. I'm going to give them a 2. The only reason that I play them is because they're not very common.
Okay, and Matt saves them from getting the lowest possible score of a 4 and bumps it up to a 5.
You're welcome,
Okay.
Amonkhet.
Is it official that these are what killed the Masterpiece series?
I don't know that they ever came out and said it, but there was a very sudden, like, we're not doing this anymore. It could also be because they ran out of card types. Like I said, it was lands and then artifacts and then creatures, enchantments, instants, sorceries, like all kind of together, and there wasn't really like a good theme going on, so maybe they just ran out of ideas, but there was not a very good reception to these, I'll put it that way.
Judging by the amount of showcase cards per set that have been coming out, I'm not sure if it was ideas they ran out of. Maybe good ideas.
Sure, yeah, fair.
Moving on, we are onto the showcases. I don't know why these started or how, but I know they exist. Matt, can you help me out?
The why, I assume, like everything else that Wizards does, was to drive sales, but the first set to have these was Wilds of Eldraine. I mean, not Wilds of Eldraine.
If I got this
Throne.
right,
Throne of Eldraine.
Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah. They basically said, hey, in boosters, you have a chance to get this really cool frame thing. And also, they are going to be much more common than the masterpieces were, so you can, like, actually get these. Not everything's going to be rare this time. By the way, we're making collector boosters to make them even easier to get. And that all just kind of happened all at the same time. This was the start of it.
Yeah, so Throne of Eldraine has the storybook frame, little filigree going on. I'm sure Jackson doesn't like that because he didn't like the filigree and all of the
Listen.
Kaladesh. But in this case, I don't think I really like it here either. Was this only on the
Adventures.
adventure cards for
Yes.
the set? Okay, because looking at this, these are 3 adventure cards.
One of the things about the showcase is that they try to do, like, everything with the mechanic or everything with the specific theme or something to that effect.
I think these are a little busy. I'm going to give these a 2.
I'm also going to give it a 2. They look nice, and I do like the actual book part down at the for its text box. I think that's a nice touch to it. They're just really busy.
I'm also a 2, mostly because I wish the bottom part was flipped. Because you have, like, this is the second thing that is you can happen or can do, and it makes it look like your top mana symbol is. It just kind of looks like it should be flipped to me, and that's maybe just because I'm reading it or looking at it goofily. But yeah,
Yeah, I think they did that because since we read from left to right, you can only do the left one first if you want to do the left one.
someone who reads a lot of manga, that's
Yeah.
probably why I lean the other way.
That's fair. I'm gonna give it a 3. I don't hate it. I kind of like the rustic kind of look of the pages. It's a little busy, but it's interesting to me.
That's a 9 for storybook frames. Moving on, we have Theros, Beyond Death, the constellations. These have some stars in them.
These were originally just for like the gods and demigods of the set. Eventually, they kind of liked this framing, so they did something similar, and now they're on all enchantments as of Foundations. They're not like exactly the same, but it's pretty close.
These are okay. I'm just going to say they're okay. I'm going to give them a 3.
I'm also going to give them a 3. The border matching with the overall aesthetic of the art is always great for me.
It's a 4 for me. I am a sucker for constellations, moon, stars, all that kind of stuff, and just more of like the silhouettes and just getting the colors to pop is up there pretty high for me.
I'm also going to put it at a 3. I do like the fact that like the text boxes are darker and the text is white. I like that particular aesthetic in general, but it's just honestly not all that much different from the modern border to me.
That's going to be a 13 for the constellations. Pretty good. I actually disagree with you entirely on that one. The
Okay, good.
black text on white is superior. Next, we have Ikoria Lair of the Behemoths, comic book style. These, once again, have dark text boxes, which I don't like. The artwork is cool, but I think these are a little too much. But the lands, whoever this person is who did this set of lands for the Triumphs, fabulous.
Oh,
Like the
yeah.
art on there is so good. I would give these a 3.
I'd easily go with a 4 on these ones. I love how, especially for the creatures, they overlap with the text boxes, like they're actually leaping off the page and changing the text so that's nice and white, so it's easily readable. And like you said, Jason, those lands, so good.
The lands are what also bump it up to the 4 for me. I am not a fan of the creatures or everything covering up a lot of the lettering or wording. Again, with newer players and everything, it's like, wait, what card is that? That's not what it says. But yeah, the lands save it big time.
I'm only gonna give them a 3. Like at the time, they were pretty neat because it was the first time they had really done anything like this. Like people have been doing full art altars for years, but they hadn't really like put them in regular sets. Now, however, you are going to see something like not necessarily the comic book style, but the just generic. This is a borderless card where the focus goes everywhere kind of a thing. A lot for me, it's kind of dulled it down a little bit for that.
When I was doing this, I didn't realize that this was actually the first borderless. That was a 14 for that one. Good job. Next up, we have the skins. This is where they put a different name on the card, so you can pretend you're playing some other IP. I hate these. These are a 1. I hate the entire idea.
I mean, the idea behind it isn't that terrible. I would agree that we've kind of gone overboard and too far into the zone of let's make every magic card from every universe.
Oh no, I don't care if they switch into other IPs. I don't
Oh,
like the idea of skins.
I see.
Just having a card that is actually a different card, and you have to like know that sometimes.
That leads into what I was going to say too. Is I wish they had it flipped so that the identity or the skin was the thinner print underneath.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I think that would help a little bit because you're still looking for those cards, but then you're basing it off of the art you want afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would make a lot more sense, I think, as well.
I kind of agree with Britt, where I kind of wish that we kind of did it reverse, where the actual card name was sitting up at top and then the guest was underneath. I'm going to give it a 2.
It's going to be a 2 for me.
I'm also at a 2. Like, it's just a generic full art thing. It just happens to be of Godzilla or whatever, and then the extra complexity of, oh, by the way, this is actually this other card is kind of nonsense.
Despite me hating these, the full art treatment in this set, I do like full arts.
Sure.
Moving on, but that'll be a different card later that focuses on that. Next, we have Core Set 2021 Signature Spellbook. These had like the different planeswalkers and some of their signature spells,
Yes.
and all the frame is darker,
Yes.
which I tend to not like. These are a 2.
I kind of have to agree with this. If you have to change how your mana symbols look to make so that it's readable and legible, and with Liliana, the two skulls kind of merge together. You know it's a black card just because of the border, but the two kind of melds together. I'm not a super big fan of it. I'm gonna go with 2.
And other colors for the mana symbols and stuff too, it gets lost in the cards. So like if you had a white card up here, it does get a little more lost versus like you can see it's clearly those symbols on the purple, the red, and the blue, but you get into those other colors and it kind of fades a little bit and makes it harder to read. So there are 2 for me.
Well, I guess I'll be different. I actually really like these. I like the darkness of it. I like the effects. Like if you look at the Chandra there, the little flamey thing going on down there is pretty neat. I'm gonna put these at a 4. There is some concerns about the difficulty of the mana symbols looking a little bizarre, but like I just really like the aesthetic.
That gives you a 10. Moving along. Double Master. So this is where I put full art at. The text boxes aren't always like this later on, right?
Yeah, they kind of are. They're all a little translucent, but yeah, this is the first full art that was just full art. That wasn't trying to also do anything special, so.
Yeah. I tend to like these. The text boxes seem like a little out of whack here, especially on Traxa there. That's hard to read. But I'm going to go with a 4 on these.
I think, especially with the gold border cards, that text box needs to be a little darker, or they need to swap out the text so that it's black on gold. I think that would sit a bit better. Otherwise, overall, they're fine. I'd give them a 3.
It's gonna be a 4 for me. I do agree with the gold border and everything needing to be just slightly darker, or maybe choosing a different shade for the actual text itself to make it more legible. But the artwork on these and making it look like it is not cut off at any point, just it looks like you have a canvas print on your wall or on your playmat. So yeah, it's gonna be a 4 for me.
If we could do partial points, I'd give these like a 3.5. I'm not like thrilled with them, but they're better than like the modern frame in my mind. Like they're at least more interesting than that, but I don't know. Take them or leave them.
I think you'd be rounding up or down on that.
Let's round down due to
Alright.
my lukewarmness on the whole thing.
Full art cards. That's a 14. Moving on, we have extended art. This is kind of like full art, but not quite there. I don't like these. I really don't like how the black is a gradient into the artwork. I think it looks bad. I'm going to give these a 2.
I don't think the gradient necessarily looks bad. I just kind of wish it extended a bit further down the card rather than just kind of stopping right where the card art is supposed to be.
Like a full art.
Kind of like a full art, but more tapered downwards rather than just like ending here. Yeah, I suppose I would just prefer to have a full art rather than an extended art.
Or do you really like the black up top? You like it going all the way down to the bottom, but you like that black bar. right up top.
I do like that black bar. Just gives it a bit more cohesiveness. I'm still gonna give it a 2. If I'm gonna have art that covers the whole card, it's gonna cover the whole card, not just the one section.
For me, I'm also going to be a 2. Without that black frame, it just kind of looks almost like stretched out because it's not extending everywhere. It's that fade. It just makes the art look more stretched and not like it's supposed to necessarily. It's just the effect that frame and the border kind of gives. It's not giving that cutoff, that definition for it.
Yeah, I almost feel like they would have been better if they went with the sharp edge like they do at the bottom there, on top and bottom.
I'm gonna do a 3 on this one as well. Honestly, to my eyes, the difference between this and full art is minimal. Yes, there are some obvious differences if you put them side by side, and you can talk about like, oh well, it's got the top border and the bottom border and all that, but like, I don't know. It's given the choice between the two of them, I would probably pick the full art, but it wouldn't be like, oh, this is so much better to me at least. So, 3 as well.
Okay. That's a 9 for extended art. 5 less than full art. Next up, we have Zendikar Rising. That brought us the travel posters.
Yeah, these
And-
were all landfall cards originally. so-
Sure. But they're supposed to look kind of like retro travel posters. I don't think that effect came across. I also think they're ugly as hell. These are a 1. What do you think, Jackson?
They do a pretty good job with having such bright colors, especially with Lotus Cobra and Omnath here. But yeah, they do just kind of look a little ugly. They do have a nice little motif with the hedrons down in the text box, but I'm gonna give this a 1 as well.
Nice.
Nice.
Little.
I'm kind of more the opposite of you guys. I like the bottom part of the cards, even on the gold, with those extra triangles and hedrons in there. You can read the text boxes. I'm also a lands player for a lot of my decks, so it kind of gets a few more points there. I do love the vibrancy of it. I like that it doesn't have that extra. It has that little bit of extra art going all the way up to the border on the top, and just having that little peak of that extra color there. I would give it a 3.
Yeah, I'm with Brittany on this one. I like the coloration. I like the. I don't know that I particularly care about the extended art as much as we've discussed recently with the actual extended art ones, but I don't know. They're visually appealing to me. I kind of like them. 3's good.
That's going to be 8 total for the travel posters. What were you going to say, Jackson?
Oh, paranegative Nellies over here.
For more negativity, we have the Viking frame from Kaldheim. Yep. Other than the cool kind of comic book art on Vorinclex here, I really don't like how it frames it in a circle there. It's like a 1.5 here. Are we going up or down?
You've been rounded down on everything
Yeah,
else.
it's a 1.
I would give them a 2. They kind of had the same problem as the Amonkhet's masterpieces, where they just kind of look overly busy, like they're trying a bit too much. But at least with these, they're somewhat legible. And with especially with this Vorinclex art, it looks, some of the art looks really good, but some of it just kind of clashes and melts away, like with Tergrid.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm going to round up to a 2. That white text box, I appreciate.
Gross.
I was gonna say like 2.5, but I'm gonna lean more towards the 3. I don't like how some of the framing kind of cuts off some of the art, but it's the fine enough filigree that it's still like it's supposed to be Viking themed. That is a lot of what the symbols and everything are for it, and having that somewhere on the card helps a little bit for the theming. So that's why I'm gonna lean towards that 3 instead of the 2 there. The cards look like they're supposed to. You know your color identities, and having that extra kind of bold edging looks nice on it.
I'm gonna put these at a 2. I think at this point, like the nostalgia starts to wear off with, oh cool, we've gotten new borders every time, and it's more like, oh, this is the new border this time. It looks fine. I don't think it's any more than fine. As an aside, the only serialized card I have is in this border, and I kind of wish it was something else, but that's fine.
What card is it?
Inga Runais, which is even an uncommon.
I see they get played all the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not even from the set; it's from the Forge of Machines. But we'll get there.
Yeah, they don't do. They did not have serialized at this time.
Nope.
For me, it's just kind of too busy, which is going to be a repeating theme coming up with a lot of these that they
Yeah.
jam in later. Next, we have Strixhaven Mystical Archives.
So at this point, a lot of the showcase stuff, they started doing like a bonus sheet of cards that are not necessarily standard legal, but you can play them in draft. I think both Inquisition and Approach of the Second Sun on here were not actually standard legal cards at the time. I don't remember if Opt was or not. Doesn't matter. They were cool cards to kind of shake up draft and kind of be the middle ground between showcase and masterpieces.
Yeah, this almost felt more like
Yeah.
going back to Masterpiece.
Where they were showing off like, hey, we've got all these cool things that fit a theme, but also you can actually find these in packs and they're not like 1 in every 4 boxes or whatever.
They're similar to the extended art, but I do like that they did the hard edge. So I like that more. But the actual design that they used for this looks kind of goofy to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I sometimes like how they look. I'm going to give these a 3.
I'm going to give them a 2. I also kind of find the framework a bit goofy. They're supposed to be from like a mystical archive, hence the name. So I would imagine more like a scroll theme,
Mhm.
like with what you have for your set symbol there. But instead, it's this very, very strange design. At least they get like the color into there, so you can tell, oh, this is a white card, this is a blue card, this is a black card. But it just looks weird overall. And don't forget Faithless Looting.
Some people really like that art.
yeah.
I am not one of those people.
You remember that art? That art looks terrible.
I became a fan because everyone whined so much.
I know someone that has that playmat and they use it.
I know
It-
I know that person as well.
It looks so bad.
It's very polarizing. I also don't like it, but whatever.
For me, it's gonna be a 2. I do like that the actual color looks like a scroll for the text box and everything on there. You did say that does kind of match a little bit of the color identity, but there's like not much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have like all the rest of your modern cards and everything that have that black border, these don't really seem to like fit or match with it. It looks like you have a different card game with all of your other cards kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them a 2. They're just very yellow. Yellow is not a color in Magic or a color that I particularly enjoy personally, but the other knock against these is that the same set also had a Japanese specific version of each of these cards, and I will 100% play those cards over these cards.
Agreed.
Any
Yeah,
chance.
And I have most of those.
Just like I disagreed with all of you here, I will disagree with you on Strixhaven Mystical Archives Japanese. They had some cool artwork, but I mean, I like to be able to read the cards, so that's a huge knock for me. And also, yeah, they don't look like they're from Magic at all. I'm gonna give these a 2, despite the super cool artwork on Demonic Tutor.
I do love just the card arts. and the fact that it's a full art, it looks so great. If you don't speak Japanese, it's going to be difficult to actually know what these cards are and what they do, but I don't think that knocks too many points off for me. I'm still going to go with a 4 because at least you can learn Japanese.
For me, this is the one that goes against what I normally say about like being able to read the card and understand the card and play the card. I just have a modern version in my deck box and I play these cards because I love the artwork and it's my aesthetic to a T. I want to see these on the field. I want to play with them. So they're one of my very few 5s.
Well, you've never had to edit a video where Brent is playing like 3 of these, one that I've never seen before, and I have to figure out what the hell they are.
That's why I have the actual cards so I can put the cards on the table for everybody to view, and mine is still on my field or yeah.
I also really, really like these. I will 100% play these over basically any other edition of anything. I am going to give them a 4 just because they only printed them in Japanese, which not only makes it difficult to be like, oh yeah, this is Tainted Pact, by the way, for people who don't know. Although if you're playing Tainted Pact against people who don't know what Tainted Pact is, you're like me and not a very nice person. But anyway, if you could get these in English booster packs and or in English printings, these would be a straight 5 for me.
Despite my 2, this goes straight to the top at a 15. The weebs will not be contained.
Hell yeah, no we won't.
Moving on, we have Modern Horizons 2. These are sketch. So they're kind of like grayscale in the middle, and I don't know how they're different on the outside, just like more muddled. These are a 1 for sure.
Ooh,
I know Matt plays them. Every time I see his Esterson on, I'm like, that is one ugly card.
you're welcome.
I got to go with a 1 as well. They look fine, especially art-wise, but like with the Esper Sentinel, there's some bolding around it, so you can actually tell what part of this card is supposed to be the Esper Sentinel. But once you get over to the Ignoble Hierarch, it just kind of fades. They don't have that same sort of bolding around it, and it just kind of looks bad.
He's hiding, so the Bowmasters can't find him.
He's hiding.
It's very
I
important.
was gonna say it's the correct choice. So.
Yeah.
For me, these are going to be a 4. I love the sketch aesthetic. I love the line work and seeing like kind of the thought process before like a full finished product. Grayscale is a lot of the artwork and stuff I do as well, so more points there for me. I know why they did the paler green, paler blue for the color identities. I wish it was just a tinge darker to be able to really tell. Otherwise, these probably be moved up to the 5, but yeah, for me, it's a 4.
I'm also going to put them at a 4. Despite, okay, so when I play cards on the channel, I usually just grab whatever's closest, unless like I happen to have a very specific version that I want to play. But I do happen to like these. I also really like the grayscale contrast. There are going to be some, perhaps in the future, spoilers that are all black and white that are perhaps not as well defined that I like less for that reason. But I like the grayscale. I like how the color of the border pops on everything except the white cards. I like it.
Okay. Then we have D&D Forgotten Realms. This is the classic rulebook. I didn't play D&D back then, but judging by the words, these are how artwork looked in the classic rulebook for D&D.
Mm-hmm.
I hate these. These are a 1.
I'm going to go with a 2. I will be a little bit nicer with them, just because I like how the card art looks. But everything else about this, just you can't tell that Gretchen is Simic, or that Minsk is Naya, or Baleful Beholder is mono black. There's no indicator of what their color identity is, and everything just kind of fades away.
Do you know what made them choose the colors in the back? Was it like type or something? You think they could have thrown the...
It is the type. The multicolors have this yellowy color. The plains is a very similar color to the multicolor. It is a more pale, like creamy kind of white color, but that's one thing I'm not a fan of is the multicolor. I like the purple, the red, the green. I like the ones that aren't multicolor backgrounds because it does at least give you a little bit of that color identity, but yeah.
Well, they didn't put those here, so we'll never know.
Yeah.
Yep. I wish they had like they had with some of the others and just that very thin like needle frame with the colors. I think that would have helped pretty drastically.
Or even with the notifications where they just have like a little thing on the side.
For me, these are also going to be a 2.
I've played Dungeons and Dragons for a while, since 3rd edition, which was after this kind of monster manual, and I really like the game. I played it before Magic. I continue to play it now. I hate these. These are 1. I don't like the art. I don't like how very brown they are. The color indicator thing is like very in your face without also being very informative in some way, somehow. Yeah, no, not for me.
It's really jarring in foil.
Yes, I have a few of those.
Next up, we have Midnight Hunt Equinox. These are another very busy one that I don't like. That's a 1.
They are also very busy and don't really tell you what their color identity is unless you're paying attention to the border around the boxes, or they just make it red. It's bad too.
Also a 2 for me. It's too cluttered. It doesn't look like it should be. It doesn't look like Midnight Hunty. It doesn't have anything distinctive. It's just little banners around it for the most part.
I'm gonna say a 3. I like the leaves and stuff. It does have the color identity problem, and it's not like particularly interesting, but I don't know. There are some pretty cool ones in this set.
I kind of felt like this one might have been one of the first sets where it felt like they were just doing it because they had to at this point, and they're just trying to cram stuff in there. Next up, we have Midnight Hunt again, this time with Eternal Night. These are grayscale. I think everyone likes the lands, and the rest of them, I'm not sure. I don't like them, but because of the lands, I will give these a 2.
Yeah, the lands look great, but some of the art for the other cards, especially old stick fingers there, it gets far too busy with the grayscaling. I'm gonna give it a 2.
This is a 2, mostly for the lands, but this is what we were talking about earlier, where like had color cards, flipped it to the grayscale, and you lose a lot of the definition.
Yeah, I'm gonna put these at a 1, honestly. Like, even the lands aren't enough to save it. Like, I'll play the lands, and some of these cards, like, the staples are like, oh, well, a braid is a braid, so you don't really care when you're just throwing it at something and putting it in your graveyard. But yeah, I don't like these.
That's a consensus. That's a 7 for those. Next set was Crimson Vow Fang. I feel exactly about these as I do about Equinox. These are a 1.
I'm gonna give him a 2. I do like the actual card art, but the frames are just kind of overly busy.
These are going to be a 2 for me too. They did thin down the frames, especially at the top, by the top text box. It's not encroaching on the artwork as much, so it's a 2.
I'm also gonna go with a 2 on these. They're fine. They're not particularly interesting.
That's a 7. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. We have Ninja. There's also going to be Samurai coming up. I assume you put these on Ninja cards.
Yes,
Checks out.
accurate.
Yeah, these just seem boring again. These are a 1.
Boring and also suffering from the overcrowding from the art and the frame. It's a 1.
These are a 3 for me. I may or may not have opened a lot of Kamigawa.
She wants to keep the stock prices high.
It's well over a case or 2.
We don't gotta talk about that.
I'm gonna put these at 2, mostly because I like ninjas and I like Kamigawa in general. I realize that they don't really have anything to do with each other, but visually they remind me a lot of the Zendikar landfall ones.
Oh, the travel posters.
Yeah,
Some
they've
of
got the same like
angles.
dark angles and stuff, and I feel similarly about those, but these have ninjas.
Yeah, that's a 7 for ninjas. And then we have Samurai. I don't like these. They are dark and uninspired to me. That's a 1.
Yeah, they kind of go with the anime aesthetic with the art, and I don't think it works.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I also hate that.
Yeah, it's not super great. They do it a bit better when they get to Wild of Eldraine. The anime art on there looks a bit better, but this is just kind of bad too.
It's going to be a 2 for me, mostly because I wish instead of like all the white framing, they had flipped it to black to match everything. I know why they did it as the white, because it does brighten up the already dark card a bit more, but nope, not a big fan.
It's a better contrast with the ninja variants.
Can we get another 7? Are you going to give it a 2?
I'm gonna give it a 3.
Oh, damn. It's
Direct.
Okay.
I already said that I like Kamigawa. I also like Samurai. For these, they're not anything like particularly special, but I think they're just like, while you may have noticed that I like the darker aesthetic and this is that.
Yep.
It's not anything like particularly different than just like a normal darker aesthetic. I don't know, inoffensive, decent. I like the anime.
Okay, that settles it. Samurais are better than ninjas.
I want to change my ninja vote.
Next set was Streets of New Capenna, and these are the Golden Age frames. Is it Art Deco or Art Nouveau? It's one of those two.
Art
Well,
Deco,
More
I
Art
think.
Deco, yeah.
Oh yeah, Art Nouveau is curvy. Art Deco is
Mhm.
Yeah.
structured.
And all of these were multicolor, I think, so there's no mono red ones or anything.
Oh, well, that goes very well with the Golden Age.
Yeah.
These I don't mind because they're not as busy, and even though the text box is dark, I don't know. I think they look pretty okay. I'm gonna give these a 3.
I love all the alternate arts on Streets of New Capenna, and these ones especially. They match the overall aesthetic really, really well. I'm gonna give them a 4.
I'm the opposite. I am. See, the only reason they get
I
the
think
2
after
is
this
because
game we
they do-
actually have to fight you too.
Oh, okay.
That has to happen.
I'm not a fan of gold in general. When you have the foil in the gold, it does really stand out and it is distracting when you put it down. The only reason it gets the 2 instead of a 1 is because it does fit the theme. It does fit Art Deco with all those line works and everything. It does fit that kind of like 50s glam almost too.
Mhm.
So that's the only reason it's getting the 2.
I would say that for a lot of these, I don't like that there's only a couple cards that are printed in each. So if you're going to run them in your deck, it's not going to match the rest
Yeah.
of your deck.
Mhm.
But if it's your commander,
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind
a
of a
little
cool
bit
option.
different.
Yeah.
So I do
Or
like
if
these.
That's
you're-
a lot for those foil treatments too.
Yeah.
Unless you're gonna see it and it's right there out in the open and everybody kind of knows what it does, then I'm fine with it. But if you don't know what it does or you can't read the card, I'd rather not have it.
Yeah. I think these two, the foil versions were just the foil border. I think.
Oh, I do like that
they
even
are.
more.
have-
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Maybe I'll give this a 4. I do like that when they only foil one part of the card, I will say.
hmm
As I said, it can be distracting when you have it on the field when all you see is the gold frame because you're distracted by the gold versus the actual what the card does. So
I don't really like these. I'm gonna put a 1. I get that it's Art Deco, but I don't like Art Deco. Yeah.
They have black text boxes though.
That helps, but not enough.
Ah, damn.
They
Okay.
just look so clean.
We're definitely going to have to fight you guys. That's a 10. Not too bad, though. Streets of New Capenna again, we have, these are called Art Deco. Okay. So, but these aren't gold, so that's why these are
Yeah,
Art Deco.
they're a little bit
Yeah.
different.
it's the top framing for the most part.
Yeah, it's very little. I mean, I think it looks worse than the regular modern border. I don't think I like them. These are a 2.
Yeah, these really don't pull off the Art Deco art style as much as the previous ones. I'm gonna give them a 3.
2 for me. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also at a 2. I feel these are not different enough from the normal border to be like impactful, and the direction that they do go from that is,
Next up, Battle for Baldur's Gate. Foil etched. I don't know what that means. I'm sure one of you two does.
yeah. They did the foiling a little bit different. Interestingly, at least for this set, which it may have deteriorated later, but the foil etched that they did,
Do not curl near his
they
back.
do not curl nearly as bad as the normal foiling. Foiling in general, we'll get to later, but I'll just say for now that this was like a little bit of a faith restored in them being able to actually foil anything without
Okay.
immediately turning into a Pringle.
I wasn't trying to include any foil cards on here. I just put these on here because I noticed that they were
Yeah, they're
different. They're
different.
dark.
They're like
Yep.
the inverse border kind of
Yeah,
a thing.
they're almost like the spell book, but
Yeah,
not-
and they did a few promos that are kind of this kind of aesthetic, sort of.
I don't like them because they're dark, but I don't hate them either. They're pretty neutral. I'll go with a 3.
Yeah, generally I don't run foils just because they're a bit too distracting, and I'm part crow. If I could get this as just an etched with this sort of sunken look to it, I think it'd look a lot better than having the shiny dusted on top of it. I'm gonna give it a 2.
There are 3 for me. I love my shinies, and having one that doesn't curl like a Pringle all the time on me when I'm playing
Mm-hmm.
is a big perk. The only reason it's not higher is because the foiling process for this does darken everything. So even if the artwork is supposed to be bright, it's still going to stay really muted.
Oh, so these are dark? I'm going down to a 2.
Yeah, they're always pretty dark.
Yeah.
They're pretty dark, yeah. Which, as we've established, I'm fond of the dark aesthetic, so I'm gonna
The
go
only
with
thing
the
that's rough though is that
yeah,
the white mana symbols they don't look like they're supposed to be.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's on there as well, but I'm gonna go with a 4 anyway. I will play these over modern border cards. I just like the dark aesthetic. They're not like so magnificent that I'm going to go out of my way like I am with certain other ones that we may have mentioned, but I like them.
That's an 11. Pretty good. Dominaria United Stain glass. I know they did the stained glass planeswalkers at some point. I don't know if it was before or after these, but I think the stained glass artwork on these, most of them I don't like at all, unlike the planeswalker ones. And I really hate the border. All the fades from dark to light. It's
Mhm.
just a lot going on. These are a 1.
These are more of a 2 for me. Art wise, they look fine, but they don't really look like they're made of stained glass, which I know is kind of par for the course because they're made of cardboard, but it doesn't look like something that you'd find inlaid in a church. Because why would braids have this much intricate detailing? Her hair tendril should be more like blocky or stuck together rather than having all this, because this is just going to shatter if it's actually stuck up in a church. It doesn't look great.
The engineering on this window is terrible.
It is terrible.
See, you pointed out the braids, and that's like the only card in this one that I liked for the
Mhm.
artwork and everything. Other than that, I don't like it. You can't read the text boxes and everything, like especially at the top with the gold. You cannot read the name of the card.
Mhm.
It's very difficult. They are a 1 for me.
I'm gonna give it a 2. I get what they were trying to go for stained glass, and stained glass is a very interesting aesthetic, but this is like pseudo stained glass, like
Mhm.
Jackson was talking about. Like if you look at the Urtai there, the background is stained glass. Urtai is just like pastel-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a 6. Not good. Brothers War schematics. So these look like blueprints, I guess is what you call them. And these are the first. Are these? Well, I have them on here, so maybe they're the first where they do the retro artifact brown frame.
The first set where they did retro stuff was Time Spiral Remastered, which is not like a standard legal set. I don't remember if that was before or after this,
Hmm.
but it was probably about the same time.
Okay. Well, either way, I think I missed that one. So, but for the artwork, I like it a lot. For the brown borders, I like them because it's one of the things that I can do in a newer deck is they've printed so many of these. You can brown out your artifacts if you want to most of the time. So I like that. I'll give these a 4.
I have a distinct problem with these, mostly because of the art, in that they're not schematics. They're just the art with some schematics around the outside. Like with Ashnod's altar here, it's just the altar and then they have a dude to the side.
Are you an actual engineer?
No, I am
Oh,
not.
okay.
It scratches my brain. They're not schematics. They're not laid out ways of this is each component, this is how you design them, this is how you build them, what they're made of. This is a 1 for me. Because
Whoa.
We're gonna have polar
Powerful.
opposites here.
I guess you're gonna have to fight everybody.
it just doesn't it doesn't fit. And it doesn't work with my brain.
What about just the brown borders retro?
The brown borders, fine. I'm more partial for the silvery borders
Okay.
of the modern artifacts. The brown bordering looks good with the actual like parchment paper-esque of the art. That matches real nice, but they're not schematics.
They are more like sketches than schematics.
They are sketches.
But they're still a 5 for me. I love these. If I can put them in a deck, they are in a deck in this version.
I'm gonna put these at a 3, which being lukewarm to them is maybe also kind of a hot take, but I don't know. I like the old artifact borders. The sketches themselves are fine. The fact that you have like the normal versions of the art as well, and most of the time the normal version of the art looks like art, and these look like, well, we tried. I don't know. I would probably normally run the normal version over the schematic version.
That's a 13 for the schematics. All will be one. Ichor. High contrast, almost black and white with a little bit of watercolor thrown in. Text boxes are dark. Matt probably likes these.
You might be surprised.
That's good because these are hideous. And I would give them less than a 1 if I could.
I am also going to give them a 1. When you actually look at the art themselves, they look fine, but that's with like a full-blown print to them. When you're holding the actual card, I have no idea what the hell Cankerbloom is supposed to look like. It just looks so weird.
I'm a 3, like 3.5, so it could go up to the 4, but it stays at the 3. I like that. I love the black and white with just the tiny hint of the color to tell like what the color identity is. You have that thin little frame to give it that color identity. I love Elish Norn. I have my Elish Norn deck and everything is Ichor,
you like
oil
this for-
slick. Yep.
Oh, you love Elish Norn, period. Or you like this art
All of the above.
extra. Okay.
I'm going to go up to a 2, and I do say up to because it's cards like Elsnorn there that save it, but a lot of the cards look a lot like that Thrumming Bird, where it's just like, here's white, and it's like,
Also depends on the playmat you're using. If you're using a dark playmat, they stand out very jarringly.
yeah,
And if you have a very light playmat, it's
yeah.
like it fits.
So there are a few of them that are pretty nice when they have like actual things going on, but then there's things like Thrumming Bird where it's just
Yeah, they look unfinished to me. They're almost reminiscent of the demonic tutor art from the Japanese,
it's probably why
Strixhaven,
it's higher for me.
but they just don't have the same vibe to me. Not feeling it. Something else I'm not feeling. It's everything about these. All will be one manga what if cards. I hate the name, whatever that is up there. I hate that the text boxes are dark. I hate that they are black and white, and I hate that they are anime. These are like a -10, but I will give them a 1.
There's really no cohesion with any of the art styles between any of the cards in the manga What If. I'm gonna give them a 2 because some of them do look passably okay. Jace looks fine here, and Koth looks pretty cool, but like Kaya, what are you doing over there?
Koth looks Yugi-esque there.
Right, that's probably my bias towards the old Yu-Gi-Oh anime, but that's neither here nor there.
It's a 2 for me. I do like the black and gray, but I still can't stand when they cover up the wording and everything with the top text box. It just bugs me to no end, and I can't put it higher.
I like the dark. I like the manga. It's a 2 anyway. And the reason that it's a 2 is because like I feel like they did not do a very good job with the art in general. Like it seems very busy.
It doesn't look like an actual manga
No.
panel. It's
No.
Oh, is that why they're black and white?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand now. I was like,
Yeah.
why do they do so much?
Yeah. Cuz like
someone who reads a lot of manga. It's not very manga-like.
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's
I
kind
don't
of the
know.
same with the anime ones. They're like kind of anime, but the
Depends
vibes are
on
a
the
little
one you get.
different.
Right.
Yeah.
Next, we have All We One Oil Slick. These are very dark cards. They are 1.
Not even the lands can really save this. I'm also going to give this a 1. Everything is just, it's too dark. I also like the dark text boxes, but this is just, the art, the text boxes, everything is just so dark.
100% opposite for me. These are one of my very few 5s. I have most of my lands are
Saving
going to
them.
be the foil versions of these. I love just that tiny bit of color around the text boxes for it. I love the dark imagery and everything for it. And these ones you can actually read, unlike another darker printing that we're going to see later.
Well,
These
maybe you can read the lands because you can read Phyrexian.
Yo.
Yes, I can. But yeah, these are one of my very few 5s. I
Okay.
love these things.
You saved them.
I'm gonna go with the 3 again. I really like the dark. I like the aesthetic. If the art was just a little bit more contrast, I think this would be a 4 for me. But the black on gray, like if the gray was maybe a little lighter or something, I think that would be pretty cool.
Next up, we have Multiverse Legends.
March of the Machines, since it was like the Phyrexians are invading everywhere, they were kind of like, well, the story takes place on a bunch of different planes. We'll use the special versions of all of those planes as things, which is fine for things like the Thalia there, where like Midnight Hunt they had just done the showcases for, and this is just that same showcase.
Oh, is it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
It
new
is.
one. That's
No.
the Equinox, isn't it?
No.
Yeah,
All right, we're
that's the
skipping, we're
Equinox
skipping
one.
that one.
But there were 3 of them that the planes that they had done them for, they hadn't done recently enough to get showcases. Ravnica was one of them. This is the first instance of that Ravnica city thing that they end up doing again later.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do here. I thought the Thalia one there was different for
No,
Innistrad.
Thalia is not different. That's the first instance of the city thing. Tarkir we actually have not gone to since this. That version, like the Goreclaw you see there, this is the only time they've done that kind of a border. And then the Ixalan as well. They did the coins.
Yeah, they'll be on the next page.
Yeah, and that's the only instance of that. But the other 3 that we did here are basically reprints. The exception being when we look at the Invocation from Amonkhet, it is slightly different for reasons that will become very apparent when you are able to read it.
We'll rapid fire through these. So we have the Tarkir here. I will say it feels like a lot of these were just lazy because they had to make so many at once.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about a lot of these. Tarkir, that's a 1. Equinox I didn't like, but we already did that. We have the Ravnica cities there. That is also a 1. That's goofy. And then we have
Neo Invocation.
Neo
or
Invocations.
something.
So they're new and they're in English.
Yeah, and they don't have that weird like extra space at the front of the name that is just like extra garbage.
Right.
That doesn't say, but though it's still a 1. And then we have Ixalan. Is that one new?
Ixalan is,
Is the-
Ikoria is not.
Little Power Ranger coin. I absolutely hate. Probably one of my least favorite. That's a 1.
Personally, I do like the wing motifs on the Tarkir ones. They're still pretty basic. I'm gonna give them a 2. Ravnica's my home. I always love it, and I do love the Rising City aesthetic to it. I'm gonna give it a 3. Amonkhet's, it's at least legible, so I'll give it a 2. I actually do really like the coin look to it. It's still a little bit busy around the edges, but I think that's a bit passable since the coins are a bit more basic. So I'm gonna go with a 3 on those.
I do love my gore claw and everything here, so that's going to be the 2. It's going to be a 1 for the cities. The cities are just too distracting for the artwork. I still don't like the Amonkhet look. It's still going to be a 1, and I don't like the coins, so that's also going to be a 1.
Tarkir looks fine-ish. I'm gonna give it a 2. We'll see if they continue with those when they actually go back to Tarkir. Cities, it just looks kind of like another generic border. I'm gonna put that at a 2. Amonkhet Invocations, I'm gonna give this a 2 just for like the you tried factor. I still don't think it looks particularly good, but at least they were able to figure out how to make the card readable now. Hate the coins.
How
No.
much?
1.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's a 7766 for those. Not good, guys. Next up, we have Tales of Middle Earth, the ring frame. As I said earlier, I don't really like the circle shape that takes away from the artwork, I feel like. Other than that, these are fine. That's a 2.
I think these are my first 5s.
Whoa.
I'm just too big of a sucker for Lord of the Rings, and I think they did such a great job with the art and making sure the color identity is actually legible.
You do know what color that card is, that's
I
for
do
sure.
know what color that card is, and it looks great.
I'm the opposite of you again here. I'm a 1. I wish they would have done like the ring portion down in like the text box to not distract as much from the art. But yeah, I don't like how it cuts it off. To me, I just can't stand it.
I'm gonna go with the 2, honestly. Like, the border itself, I'm fine with, and the colors are all fine. Like, nothing extraordinary, but decent. And then you get to the art, and like, look at that little tiny Legolas over there. What's he doing over there, that little guy? And like, a lot of the arts are like that. It's just like, this is a card of Samwise, but you couldn't tell from looking at it.
Yeah, it's like they didn't have like IP rights to the franchise, so they're like, everyone has to be 300 feet away.
Mhm.
It's just that they have like normal arts with like actual characters on them.
That's a 10 for those, so not the worst. Jackson loves them.
I do love them.
That's half those points are from Jackson. Tales of Middle Earth, we have the scroll. These are math for me. This is another 2.
I feel like this should have been the overall aesthetic for the Mystical Archives.
Yeah.
Just more scroll-like, actually looking like it's made of parchment. I'm gonna give them a 4, but just do this for the Mystical Archives.
I like these better than the ring versions. They're gonna get a 2 from me. I like the more color identity, and you get more up close artwork and everything on these ones. So
Yeah, I'll give them a 3. I like the way that they indicate color. The brown isn't too brown or yellow or whatever. It actually looks like paper instead of just whatever that garbage was in the Baldur's Gate ones.
I think what might throw me off a little is this extra thick black border here.
it is
yeah.
chunky.
I'm not sure-
Multiple C's.
I'm not sure why they wouldn't have taken the art all the way to the edge like they do with a lot of the extendeds. Next up, these are interesting. We have the Commander Master's borderless profiles. So these are more kind of cartoon artworks that are super close side shots of commanders' heads. I tend not to like a lot of the artworks on these, but I kind of like them just because they're the commanders. So it's a cool card to have, way different from the rest of your deck, and they stand out a lot. And some of the artwork's cool. I'll probably go with a 4 on these actually.
I'm gonna go more of a 3 on them. Some of the profiles, like with Tatiova here, has a bit of personality with her, but most of them are just kind of look this way. Neheb has this red background because he's a red color identity card,
It's
but
orange.
Sheree is a black identity card, but it has this green around it, which I feel like could be a bit more confusing.
I don't know what the other ones were, but I don't know if they even tried to match it. Might just be a coincidence that Neheb is.
They're all
reddish.
kind of goofy
Random
for the
colors,
most part. Yeah.
It brings it down for me.
It's a 2 for me. A lot of along those lines. If you're gonna do a profile and it's just kind of the generic, just keep it like more like the Shirei and have it just like the black silhouette, like you're having the shadow. It would, to me, makes more sense. Right now, it just kind of like more blah. Like you have some that have like with the horns with Neheb, you're giving so much more definition, and the other ones are just matte.
I'm going with a 1. I do not like these at all. I don't know if it's just like the matte background or the fact that they're just like, oh, here I am, here's Neheb derping off into space on the side, or what, but I will run basically any other version before I run these.
Yeah, I think maybe I should go back and look at the rest. I think Tatiova, I do like how much personality she has.
Yeah, that one's not bad.
So my rating's probably wrong there, but I like her. Next up, Commander Master's Borderless Frame Break. Despite the black text boxes, I thought these were probably some of the coolest cards that I've seen. These are 4.5 for me. I guess we'll round down to a 4.
Yeah, these are a pretty easy 4 for me. Fierce Guardianship gets a little wacky with the coloration up towards the top there, but everything else is just perfectly done.
They're a 4 for me. The reason they're not a 5 is like the Fierce Guardianship, I hate it when they cover up those text boxes.
These are 3. I don't have any real distinction between these and the other full art ones. I mean, yeah, they're going over some of the elements, but they kind of do that in some of the full arts anyway.
It's mainly the swag that Korvold has there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that particular art is pretty neat, but I don't know, it's just another full art for me.
It might just be the artist. I don't know if they're all the same, but
He's also resting his arm on the actual
Yeah.
text box. Which
Yeah,
is a
he's
nice
just
little touch.
lazily just
Yeah,
swatting it.
whatever.
I feel like
Based on the 3 we have here, I would say they're not the same artist.
there's just a lot of movement in the parts that they chose to pop out. That's a 15, tied for first place. Moving on, we have
Nice.
Wilds of Eldraine, Enchanting Tales. These are just for enchantments, correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
These are just like the Mystical Archive, where they have the, like, this is a bonus sheet.
I think these are kind of boring. I don't like them, but the art on Necropotence is sick, so they will get a
Mhm.
2.
Similar reasons.
This is kind of how I wanted most extended arts to actually be, where it actually extends just a little bit further down. So you get more of that art around the text box rather than having it cut off at the text box. I love these arts. These are an easy 5 for me.
They are a 3 for me, and the artwork does a lot. And like you said, I love how the art goes down just that little bit.
These are 3 for me as well. I like the dark text boxes somewhat, as we've established. Apart from that, they're not particularly like good or bad. They're just kind of like fine. And it is another one that they have specific Japanese alternate arts that I will play over these basically every time.
Okay, moving into another universe beyond, we have Doctor Who, the TARDIS frame, so blue. These are a 1. I don't like that they changed the the type on the top.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And they also kind of cover it up with some of the characters in the frames too. Like the second Doctor kind of covers up the fact that he's
The second Doctor.
The second
Yeah.
Doctor. These are pretty easy too for me as well.
They're a 1 for me. Everything is blue. You don't know your color identity. It like even with the tiny little thin border, it's just blue.
I'm also at a 1 on these. I really
Whoa.
like Doctor Who. Like, I started with 11 and then I went back and watched 9 and 10 and then continued on from there somewhat. I'm behind right now. But, a lot of these arts I'm not a fan of, and they are just like, everything's blue.
For real. That's a 5, tied for last place. Next up, Lord of the Rings holiday release poster. So this is the first instance of the actual poster art I found. It might have come up earlier in a Secret Lair, but there are so many
Yeah.
of those, and we're not doing those.
Yeah, we're not doing those. There were a few Secret Lairs that did this before this, but this is the first time it was in an actual, like, I mean, it was in the holiday collector booster packs for Lord of the Rings, but it was like a normal set that you can open. This is the first time they did that for that.
I mainly just love these, even though they're hard to read. But because of the hard to read, I will give them a 4. There's some like the Secret Lair horror movie posters, like some of
Mhm.
my favorite arts on the cards, but they are hard to read.
I do love Lord of the Rings, but this reads with a really big "Don't Dead" open inside kind of aesthetic to it, where it's just messy. Like, what is Sauron supposed to?
He's supposed to be a
do?
70s band poster.
I know, but
Oh.
it just looks so messy. These are a 1.
They're also one for me. I cannot stand them. The lettering being everywhere. Like, you can go poster with still being legible. These ones, they're hardly legible at
Mhm.
all.
I'm gonna go with a 2. Like, I like how they're different to a certain point. The exclusivity of them, the fact that they were very rare in a very limited print run, gets points for me as a collector. But yeah, they're just like, you kind of have to know what the card does when you're going into it, or good luck.
Yeah. I will say I wish they would stick to legendary creatures on this type of card. Because having a deck with a bunch of these in it,
Well, the
Yeah.
mana symbols too, like what, like
Yeah, the
they're
Sauron,
different
they're
on
just all
almost
over it,
everything.
yeah.
Like,
They're very inconsistent even between each other. I do want to get a Saruman just because I kind of want to build Saruman at some point, and it would be very cool to have that as your commander.
that's a below average 8. Next up, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Legends of Ixalan. I assume this was for Legends in Ixalan.
Yes.
These come across very muddy to me. That's a 1.
I kind of wish they kept with the coin aesthetic with this. I know everyone else is very down on the coins, but I do like my little chocolate coins. These are pretty easily a 2 for me.
they're gonna be a 2 for me, and that's just because the actual frame itself does look like it's working with the art. Like, if you look here, it looks like they're bracing themselves against the frame, and it kind of works with it.
I'm gonna go with a 2. They were like obviously trying to do this is a map and this is a person on a map, but like
Oh, that was obvious? I get it now. Thank
yeah,
you.
no problem. I will obviously point out the thing that was obvious. Maps don't lead to people. Oh, anyway, I don't know. It's
I need
fine.
the map lands for that.
It's not doing anything like spectacularly different. I'll play it because it's different from the modern border, but not for any other reason.
I know people like to make fun of the cat's artwork, so
Oh yeah,
let's all make fun of
Yeah.
it before we move along.
whatever he's doing over there.
Yeah,
Does
look,
look a little goofy.
he's cowering in the corner. Oh my god. Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Gods of Ixalan. These are kind of like the little rock tokens you like so much,
The coins.
My little
But-
Gucci coins.
but possibly even worse. This is a 1.
These are pretty easily a 4 for me. They actually take what the gods are supposed to be and actually give them like a physical symbol of what they're supposed to represent. Especially like O'Hare Talk, which makes more tokens in as a card, has its art be splitting into 3 different people. It works really well for me.
These are gonna be a 2. They could have been higher, but I wish they had done it all like the grayscale, like the stonework, like the background, because then it just looks like they're part of the statue. And I think that would have looked even cooler. And just having those little bops of color with the text boxes.
I'm also gonna go with the 2. I kind of like them. They're different, but they don't look like creatures very much, despite the fact that they are supposed to be creatures.
I'm actually really confused. The coins and like these ones, what exactly were they going for? Is there something in the lore that like they have lots of carvings and coins, or why is
I've
this even a thing?
no
I assume
idea.
it's to go with the Golden City because that was the main driving force in Ixalan the first time we went. You had all the different
Yeah, everyone's looking for El
factions
Dorado.
looking for El Dorado, the Golden City. So these are more just like treasure aesthetics that Ixalan has gone with.
Because I remember I first saw the Galta on the gold coin, and Michael was so excited, and I was like, "What am I even looking at? Why? How is this a creature at all?" Okay, next one we have Murders at Karlov Manor, the dossier. So like a secret file of some sort, stack of pictures. I really don't like the stack of pictures look. Just very uninspiring, I think, in general. Also very washed out. Barely any color on there. This is a 1 again.
It took some 8x10s and some photos and just glued them together like it's a scrapbook.
Yeah, I just honestly wish they would stop making these things.
I might give it a 2. It kind of fits the overall theming of Murders of Karlov. Murders of Karlov. Like you said, it just looks a bit too washed out.
They're a 1 for me. I can't stand the tilted frame, and it's not level, and it drives my eyes bonkers, and I just can't.
It's also not, I imagine it's not the right aspect for a 4x6 picture.
Probably
No, it is not.
What if we took the white borders and brought them inside?
It's
Uh,
not.
Because that's kind of what we're doing here. It's just very white, and I'm gonna go with the 2.
Like, I think they could have done, like, the manila file folders and have it like that, so it would still be straight, but then you have your tab for your color and everything, or the tab to be, like, the text box. That could have been cooler, but
Yeah, there's some cool things they could have done, but they didn't.
That's a big ol' 6. We got another Murders at Karlov Manor. It's another one in a circle that's dark, magnified. That's a very fancy magnifying glass, but that is still a 1.
Yeah, they're not really magnifying anything, are they? This is more just holding up a piece of glass and seeing what's happening through it. I'm gonna give this a 2.
Yeah,
I think a
fisheye
2.
fisheye effect might have been cool.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
Just to make it actually look like the magnifying glass or lens or anything going through there, they're going to be a 2 for me just because a lot of the artwork is decent and I can't put them down with the white border stuff.
I do like the dark, as we've established, so that's pretty cool. The rest of it's fine. I don't know, nothing special, nothing particularly bad either. I'm gonna put them at 2.
That's a 7. Beats out the dossier at least. Next up, we have Fallout Pip-Boy. This is the Fallout universe where everything is,
A screen,
yeah,
sort of.
on your Pip-Boy. They're dark, and I don't like the font. I mean, I know why they used it, because it's the font on the Pip-Boy, I imagine. Yeah, they just don't read well to me. And them all having that green over top of them.
It's like the Doctor Who thing where everything is blue. These ones all look green,
All
even
look
though they
green.
have the tiny little
Yeah,
symbols at the top in the frames.
everything's too samey. I mean, same with the dossier. Yeah. I don't like these. That's a 1.
I feel like they could have done this a bit better if they had gone with the usual art style that Fallout has on their Pip-Boys, where it's just the black or slightly gray screen with that caricature of the Pip-Boy. Like Dogmeat could have been in that particular art style where it's just the white Pip-Boy-esque dog being followed or following after the main character. Deathclaw could have been like actually snuck up behind with that cartoon aesthetic, about to chomp into someone.
I bet they already had a lot of that artwork in the games. 'Cause
I'm sure they
had
did.
on the stat screen. They had so many little cute icons.
Right,
I think
like,
that would have been a great idea.
I feel like that would have been so much better.
But that would have cost more money. What's your rating?
I think it's a 1.
Yeah.
These just look like pictures that they turned green.
See, for me, it's a 2 just because the artwork does, in the framing and the lining and everything through it, it does fit like the static screen for the aesthetic for Fallout. So that's the only reason it's going to get a 2.
I am also at a 2. I don't particularly like the olive green color, just in general. The fact that it is trying to mimic the video game, and if I am playing a commander from that video game, which I do, because I've got Wise Mothman, I'm fine playing all the cards with that border in that deck, but I'm not playing these anywhere else.
That's a 6. Poor showing for Fallout Pip-Boy. Outlaws of Thunder Junction wanted posters. I imagine these aren't going to do well. These suffer from the same thing that dossier cards do. They're all very pale beige. I don't like the font at the top. There's just a lot I don't like here. I guess the artworks are kind of cute, except for Annie. She looks very bad there. Gisa is funny. I like her artwork.
Gisa's having a hell of a time.
She can't save it on her own, so this is a 1. She raises it to a 1.25, but then it goes back down.
Yeah, this is definitely a 2 for me. I like the overall aesthetic, and some of the characters are having some fun, like Sartoru and Gisa, but others are like Annie.
Me, they're a 1. I cannot stand them. They move the mana symbols like you're not looking and you're having to search for them every time. They do have the slight framing for the colors on the outside of them for the portraits, but even then, it's really hard to tell the color identities.
These are probably a 1, like 1.5 really. Like, I will play them, and they made a bunch of good reprints with this. No, wait, that's the next one. Never mind. Nah, these are whatever. I don't care about these.
All right, Jackson saves them from the fate of a 4, and they will be a 5. Moving on, Outlaws of Thunder Junction breaking news. I assume these are supposed to look like a newspaper. I don't think they look like that at all.
I think they should have been all grayscale.
These to me are very muddy. I don't understand why it says prosperity at top. I imagine that's the name of a newspaper in the lore that I didn't read.
It's the name of the
Prosperity
town.
Post.
As someone who has worked for a newspaper, I don't think this reads well as a newspaper. I absolutely don't like the faded colors in the background. I wish they would have been bolder or not used any color at all. These are a 1.
These are also going to be a 2 for me. I do like the overall aesthetic and the flavor text, which I know isn't actually supposed to be
Part of it.
part of this. They do a pretty good job with the flavor text to actually pair it with the card overall. Like you said, Jason, it just kind of looks muddy, and most of the art looks a little off.
Gonna be a 1 for me too. It's harder to see the mana symbols. You can tell the color identity of the cards, but it's too washed out. Like the whole thing is just too washed out and hard to read.
I would say 1.5 because they have like reasonable reprints and they're not like offensive to look at, but I don't particularly like them. I'm gonna round up to a 2 just because of the flavor text. Like I actually went through and read all the flavor texts on these because
What
they
is
are
special about the flavor text on these?
they're just like amusing headlines that you would see in a,
Oh.
So,
a
like
thing.
for Mana Drain, fighting fire with fire ineffective, reports flammable wizard.
They're moderately amusing. I'll give it the round up because of that.
Okay, that gives it the edge over the wanted posters by 1 point with a 6. One more, Thunder Junction. The Big Score vault frames. This border frame looks kind of unassuming. It doesn't repulse me. It's not too busy. Again, it just looks like the frame from a slightly worse card game. I'll give it a 2.
I have kind of the same problem with this as the Kaladesh one, where it just kind of looks not quite right. Like, not quite out of a vault. Are we supposed to believe that there was an entire Grand Abolisher, a human cleric, just standing in this vault, waiting ever so patiently for someone to open it?
Some of that might be like this is a dude that was looking for it, or in
Right,
the race
and
to get
it could be
but-
more referring to the thing he's wearing as the shiny object, but I don't know. I'm just getting the impression of, yeah, we have Woldbreaker Helm, an actual piece of like jewelry or equipment that you can go and find. Same with Lotus Ring. And then there's just a dude.
These are gonna be a 2 for me.
There are 2 for me as well.
It cuts off the artwork. If you look at the helm and stuff, like you don't see like the full thing because it's just cut off weirdly with that framing. The same with the Lotus Ring too. It looks awkward against the artwork. It's not enhancing, bringing anything to it.
I'm also at a 2. It's nothing special really, and the color indicators are not well. It's harder to tell in these because these are all like kind of similar colors, and it's a little easier to tell in the green and the red, but they're not very pronounced, I would say. They're fine.
They're fine. They got an 8. Next up, Assassin's Creed. These are memory corridor cards. I like the white text boxes. These look like cards from another game that might actually be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like not
Yeah.
like a shitty game. I'll give these a 3. I don't like them in Magic though.
And would you put it lower?
They're definitely better than
They are
the
definitely
vault
magic
frames.
cards.
I'm still gonna go with the 3.
I'm gonna go with a 1 on these ones. A lot of them are just the dude standing there doing something, and like you said, it doesn't really feel like it's part of Magic the Gathering, which I know could be said with a lot of the modern frameworks that they put out, especially since this is a Universes Beyond. But this whole thing just looks messy and all over the place. I'm not a fan.
They're gonna be a 1 for me. I don't like that, like, the normal top text box normally has those rounded edges. This is just like the flat cut at the top. And then in the bottom text box, it has that one little kick out,
Angle.
and it throws everything with the text boxes. You have some that the text goes almost into it, and then you have others where it's like just too awkward, and it doesn't look like a Magic card.
Yeah, I think of all of the things that we've seen at this point, this is the one that looks most like it's just supposed to be part of a different game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've looked at a lot of random cards from random CCGs, and this definitely is reminiscent of a lot of those. I'm still going to give it a 2 because it's aesthetically fine to me. Like, it does the job of being a Magic card, but I would probably not run it most of the time.
I'm just saying it looks better than Yu-Gi-Oh cards, better than Pokemon cards, better than Blood and whatever cards.
Flesh and Blood?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I may have
Worse
a lot of
than Magic
Pokemon cards, so we will.
I also have a lot of Pokemon cards.
Some Pokemon cards do look pretty good.
But okay, we got a 7. Next up, Bloomborough. These are woodland cards. Not sure exactly what they were going for.
I think it's like watercolor fantasy.
Yeah, it looks kind of watercolor. It's kind of
Yeah.
faded, washed out. I don't really like it. I don't hate it. I'll give it a 2.
Yeah, I'm not a super fan of this. I do actually kind of like on Elena. So they have these two symbols on the left and right here, and they seem to correspond with whatever color is
Mhm.
the identity for it. And like on Elena, you have the red one and the blue one on the left side there, which does actually look pretty nice. I'm gonna go with a 3 on this one.
These are going to be a 4 for me because I love that the actual like framing frames it kind of more like that picture book storybook and ties in with the themes, the colors, and it looks like it's more part of the artwork than a lot of those other
Mhm.
frames. It's not too distracting. You can tell your color identity, you can read the card even when there is a mountain of text on it.
Mhm.
And it's just overall very clear.
I'm kind of at like a high 3 here. I don't think that. Yeah, I'd probably play these over. Well, I'd definitely play these over the modern border. I might play these over. Not that there are any cards that both have the old border and this border, but I might play them over the old border. I don't know. I like the colors. I like the stylization, some of the details on the sides, and none of it's too overwhelming. I think it's cool.
A solid 12. Then we have Bloomborough Japanese Showcase. They're anime-esque arts with dark text boxes, but they're okay. I'll give them a 2.
I'd give them a 3. They do well enough with the art, and Ral looks pretty cute as I believe, an otter.
Yeah, I think it helps that they're little cute
Or
creatures.
is it a badger?
Cute helps. You know, he's an otter.
They're going to be a 3 for me. I like that the darker text box does kind of frame the more bright, like woodsy creatures. It does make the artwork stand out. It is a little bit harder with like the color identities, but a lot of these are the multicolor. So at least you have your mana symbols where they should be kind of in
Mhm.
that top corner so you still know what they are.
I'm kind of torn between a 3 and a 4 with these, so I guess I'll round up to a 4 because I rounded the last one down.
Yeah,
I like,
consistency is key.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like the dark tech boxes.
Yeah, I
It's-
bet you love that text box on Ral there. It is so big and
I
dark.
like
It's so
that.
gigantic.
It's not weebish enough to get weeb bonus points, but I do still like the arts.
That's another 12 from Bloomborough, doing pretty well. Now we move on to Duskworn. Starting off with double exposure. This is actually these are just full arts, yeah? But they have different
Sort of.
artwork.
They're very keyed towards specific colors, as you can see there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the artwork is different enough that I included them, even though they're basically just full art cards. I don't like these. Some of these I like very little. I don't know what they're trying to convey.
I feel like you need 3D glasses. So like this one, if you have your red and your blue and you just have the different colors for your 3D
Mhm.
glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, except that they're probably not actually set up to do that correctly.
Probably
Mhm.
not.
Yeah, is that like what they were trying to play off of?
I guess, maybe.
They're just-
Maybe.
Kind of weird. I'm definitely going to give these a 1.
They're just framed really weirdly. Why is Tyvar just kind of standing there with the wispy monster behind him? Why does Marvin have this skeletal hand sticking behind him? What does this demon have to do with the Jolly Balloon Man? Surely that should be just an inflated head that he turned into a balloon. Why does Marvin's color identity apparently look blue from here?
The colors don't match. It's hard to see what theme they're going for.
It-
Contrasting colors are cool, but there's like nothing.
There's nothing, they're not doing
What's the
anything
purpose?
with it. They're just kind of stapling two arts together and it doesn't look all that great. This is a 1 for me.
It's a 2 for me just because aesthetic wise for the artwork is the only reason why. Everything else about the cards could put it lower to the 1, but because it does have a lot of high contrast and that it does read cool, but just not for what it is supposed to be for.
These are ass. I hate them so much. These are probably my least favorite that we have here, and it's not going to get better from here in Duskborn. Spoilers. I have some of the Satorus. It's just like very yellow and gross, and I don't like them at all. These are all ugly as sin.
We have another 5. Moving on to the next Duskmorn, we have the Paranormal Showcase cards. These are supposed to be like retro Ghost Hunter-ish, I guess, or like CRT monitor,
I guess so.
The old
maybe?
giant wooden frame TVs.
The ones you could smack to fix the
I
Picture
still
on it?
have that. I still had one.
I don't think it conveys that very well, though. These seem
No.
like a very lazy attempt to me that they should have just left out. This is a 1.
This is definitely a 1 for me as well.
Same one.
Oh boy, we're gonna get our first 4.
We got there. Thank
These-
goodness.
So the problem I have with these, not only are they just very gray, but the border is busy, the art is busy. There are no redeeming qualities apart from the fact that the words are legible
Yeah.
and the mana symbols are where they're supposed to be.
Similar to the Pip-Boy, but somehow worse.
The colorful static going across it, I think, doesn't help it. Like the
No.
Pip-Boy ones, they had just more of the plain, like actual like skin breaks if you're doing a
Yeah.
tattooing reference and stuff on there. This just has
Scan
random
lines.
like colors thrown through it.
Yeah.
Like your toner or your printer is running low on ink.
Right.
Or
Yeah, the scan lines were because like CRTs do that. I think the Pip-Boy stuff gets a little bit of a boost because like they're trying to copy something else that was already doing their own style.
Hmm.
Whereas this is like, yeah, we like vaguely know what movies are.
They're
Yeah.
not even like consistent with it because you can see the scan lines on. This is a pretty good setup for this because Ghost Vacuum Balustrade Worm has those scan lines on them, but once you get down to the Reluctant Role Model here, you can't really see them.
Well, he's watching the TV. They're on the TV.
True, but then you're breaking the overall aesthetic of the thing itself, where you're supposed to be watching them on a
Mhm.
TV.
Yeah, I made
and
that
then-
part up. I don't
and
think that's
they-
true.
They just did a really bad job with this.
Okay, we have our first 4, bottom of the list. Let's see if anything else will tie it.
Which is bad from a trend perspective because these are new.
Bloomborough did okay though. So
That's true.
now we have Duskmorn Japan Showcase. These are where they were showcasing some more Japanese artists.
Mhm.
I mean, the artwork is fine, good for the artists. But the frame, which is what I'm focused on here, these are probably some of my least favorite. I don't understand why these lines are necessary. I absolutely hate black outline text in all forms. So these will be a 1.
This is no hate to the artist. They all do look really, really good. The problem is that when I first saw all this art, I thought it was an AI generated art piece. It just doesn't look great to me. This is definitely a 1. The art style, everything just doesn't vibe with me.
I'm gonna do a 2, just because I like the color scheming for them. Like you know what the cards are for the colors. I like that monochrome where it's here's all your red hues, here is all your blue hues, and I like that part. I'm happy that they did do the black lining around the white text because otherwise it would be even more impossible to read
Mhm.
either way. I guess that's part of the reason for the 2 is a little bit of saving grace, but these look like you said they could be AI generated, and these look more like let's just have the art with no text. These could have been the textless versions of
Mhm.
cards, but even then, it doesn't look like magic cards.
I've got a 3 on these. I do like the art, most of them. I don't like Flood Pits that much, despite him being one of the ones that we have here today. But I like the minimalistic stuff. It is basically a textless with text kind of a thing, and they've tried that a few different times with various promos. It's decent. I'd play it.
That's a 7 for the Japan Showcase. Now we have Infinity. These are retro futuristic.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to be reminiscent of like the 50s and 60s Hanna-Barbera cartoons kind of a style.
Yeah, like the Jetsons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which they do a pretty good job at.
I'm assuming all of the artwork is similar to that.
These are all fairly representative of the art on these.
These are okay. I'll give them a 2. I'm not offended by them, but I don't particularly like them.
I'll give them a 3. I think they do a better job with the coloration than some of the other ones from before.
It's going to be a 2 for me. Like the actual border and frame is just very generic, kind of basic. It doesn't enhance or bring up the artwork or anything.
Yeah, I'm at the same boat on that. I'm at a 2. I don't know, the art aesthetics, whatever. It's actually really funny. If from the art on DK specifically there, you can't really tell that she's a zombie apart from the green skin. Whereas the normal one, you can definitely tell that she's a zombie because she's like decaying and stuff. Like just in general, I don't know, it looks like a normal border-ish.
That is a 7. That's all the showcase I found. There might have been more.
There
We're
will probably be 3 or 4 more by the time this comes out.
yeah. Moving on to some promos. Again, this probably isn't all of the promos. First off, we have Textless. These are the older ones. They have a bit more border than the new ones.
These used to come as player rewards. It used to be the case that when you would just go to FNMs and other events, you would earn points, and like if you were signed up for the program, they would just mail you promos, including these. I had started playing Magic kind of on that era, so I did actually get some of these in the mail.
For these, so you can't read them, obviously. but they tend to stick to cards that most people would know for the most
Yeah.
part.
At the time, like most of the time, they were giving you staples or cards that were like new and allegedly staples, like Mortify and Putrefy.
Did people run Terror? I feel like no.
They didn't really run it, but that card had been around since Alpha, so
Yeah.
people knew what it did.
So I don't knock against them too hard for that, as long as they stick to obvious ones.
Call Cryptic Command.
Yeah. Cryptic Command was one that they eventually did, and people
Yeah.
were like, "What are you doing?"
Probably not a great decision there. But yeah, these look a little too old for me. How the box curves around, it just looks like something from the 90s, even though it was the 2000s apparently.
It looks like you have a perfect space to put a relic token to have your
Yeah.
counters there because it's almost the perfect shape and
Uh-huh.
size to put a
Mm.
relic token there instead.
I'm going to give these a 2.
I'm gonna give them a 3. I like the artwork on these.
It's going to be a 2 for me because it looks like you went to a flea market and pulled up a bunch of random art and stuck it behind a frame, and it just looks wonky and antique-y.
I'm also gonna go with the 2 just because there isn't any text, which I mean that's the point, and this was the first time they had experimented with that, doing that kind of a thing. But when you're like, "This is my mana leak," and they're like, "What is that?" and you can't really explain it, then like, well, then why are you playing this version of the card? It is amusing that this is also like basically the border they used for the first tokens, so these kind of
Yeah,
look like
yeah, yeah.
tokens.
Yeah. Okay, that's a 9 for text list from 2005 to 2011. Moving on, we have text lists 2019 to current. These I like more. Again, we run into the same problem. You can't read them. Urza Saga, I really like the artwork on that, even though it does have a lot of words on the card.
I have the exact Path to Exile with me here that is in one of my decks.
I like them better than the older ones. I'll give these a 3.
I'm also gonna give these a 3. They do a really good job with the art. I just kind of wish Urza Saga wasn't one of them.
Something that has the mountain of text that you need to keep track
Yeah.
of and remember
This
where
is-
you are.
This is also where the Omnath is. It's in this set.
Oh yeah.
I think I like this Urza Saga because I don't like the artwork on the other two. They need the reprint with this artwork on the actual
On the side.
saga.
These are also going to be a 3 for me because I like them more than having that awkward frame around them. A lot of these cards do seem more recognizable. Like most people are going to know what a Path to Exile is for removal. And it does have really pretty artwork.
These are 2 for me. Same as the previous ones. Same issues, same bonuses, same basically everything except that they're newer.
That's an 11. Except we have full art promos. So these are bigger artworks with see-through text boxes, but they still have the words on them. But they try to darken the box when needed. These I don't like as much. These will be a 2.
I think they're gonna be a 2 for me as well. The text boxes just look a bit too awkward on Liliana's Triumphant Abrid there. And having no text box feels very strange.
It's
on
almost
Electrolyze.
reminiscent of the black outlined white letters of
Right.
the other one. It's harder
Yeah.
to read.
Oh yeah,
These are very similar to those Japanese showcase ones from Duskborn.
yeah. It works here because I thought they darkened it, but it looks like they didn't actually. It's just part of the
No,
art.
That's just part of the art.
Yeah, they needed to position all the art better so you could read all the
But
words.
like having Liliana's dress just kind of sitting there flowing around the text makes it probably make it a bit more illegible, especially down here where they have a lighter
You
section
can't
of
read
the art.
it
You
Yeah.
just,
at all.
you just can't read.
These are going to be a 2 for me too.
I'm also going to do it too. These are just Texas cards, but with text, which is just cards. I don't know.
Speaking of cards you can't read, Phyrexian cards. These are like normal cards, but they are written in Phyrexian, which may
Yeah.
or may not be a real language.
The borders are slightly different.
Oh yeah, they're kind of a little jagged. How about that? I will give these. It's between a 1 and a 2. We'll give them a 2 because they're basically normal.
I'm
You-
also going to give him a 2.
I guess that's what I would rate a foreign card. Yeah.
It's basically just a standard frame with the Phyrexian text in it.
Even though I love Phyrexian and everything and do have the key and everything to read them all, it's still going to be a 2 for me.
I am also on that 2 train. Basically, everything I said about Texas cards apply here because no one can read them. Other than that, they're mostly the same as normal.
Okay, another 8. We're all in agreement. Last one on my list. Speaking of cards you can't read, we have the Comic-Con promos that are foil and mainly black.
Foilish. The foiling's a little weird.
Yeah, I hate these things.
Ooh.
Whenever I see one across the table, I get a little angry. This is a 1.
Yeah, no, that's a
You would
one.
think that the wording would be easier to read. It is not.
No.
It is
Yeah, is it foil wording?
impossible.
That, why would you
Yeah.
foilize the wording?
It is impossible.
That's awful. That's a 1.
Same. 1. It is one of my least favorites.
I'm gonna put it at a 2 just because of the collector stuff. Like when you hold it in front of you or when you see it across from the table, you cannot read it basically at all. But it's cool. I like what they attempted to do, even though it didn't work.
From what I understand, some people really like them, but those people are wrong. It's a 5. Okay, that's the list. We made it. Now we have foil treatments. We have a big stack of foils.
Okay. Do we just want to bring up some of the more, like, we can look at the Future Sight foil frame, but it's just Future Sight button foil. The
Ah,
foil
yes.
doesn't really add anything, and the foiling isn't special. That, however, I don't know if we want to use the overhead camera for this,
Oh, look at
or...
this. So this is a fractured foil?
Yes, that is the fracture foil. And then
It
like
takes an already
that's
busy
like the
artwork.
gilded. This is the hidden text, so it's like almost impossible. This is confetti foil, the Dominus and the oil slicks.
And this-
I have numbered cards,
I will say, like, the last year that they did,
different kinds of foiling. Like this one is super shiny. There's the halo foils in here.
the last year that they did SDCC, they kind of made it a little bit different, and like
Oh, that's
that,
interesting.
that Bolas is, I think, pretty sweet.
I have a ripple in here too.
I kind of wish when they did the foiling, they would extend it somewhat to the artwork, kind of how they do it with the nickel bolus.
Stained glass has a different texture. So it looks like etched on the bottom and then the stained glass is brighter. Phyrexian foils are very slick. This one, it's a foil, but it's just the raised framings on it. So many foils. You've got your old classics.
I really like the original foiling. It's,
Yeah, one of my favorites because it's the new old border
Oh,
style. So
okay.
just seeing the difference is between the two.
Yeah, I think my favorite type of foiling is where they do it like this, where they do like the magical whatever part of the card and foil and the rest flat.
But yeah, like for the watercolory Bloomborough ones, they look really cool.
It does kind of distract from the artwork. The border being so shiny.
I actually really like the black and whites look really nice in foil. The Japanese printings of it I really like because it's a subtle foil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you have the other version that goes with it and it's just, to me, it looks more gaudy. But yeah, also have the Lily's Triumph in there. It's even harder to read in person than it is on the camera there.
All right,
Yeah.
we just looked at a bunch of foil cards. What's your consensus? Foil, good or bad? I would say bad. I think it makes the card worse.
If it's done right, I really like it. And as long as they don't curl up, it doesn't help any either that since they started printing the collector foil or the collector boosters, that it's just been kind of a more humdrum kind of a thing. Like back in the day, it was like 1 in 3 packs had a foil or something. And if you wanted to get the specific foil you were looking for, like, good luck. That was the reason the prices were so good and why people were seeking after them for the collector value. But then they're like, you can just buy a pack that's mostly foils.
All right, so Matt's in the middle. I'm sad face. Matt is a straight faced.
I'm kind of in the middle too. A lot of the foils they do really well on, where they actually kind of incorporate it into the art and use it to accent some of the shinier parts of it, like with the Atraxa or like with some of the more black and white art frames, where they make that white pop out a bit more and shine. But a lot of them are just like make the whole thing shiny. I much prefer the subtler ones like this one here.
I'll have to say middle because I either love it or hate it. There really isn't a middle ground. I like the more subtle foiling. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the confetti or the fracture foils because you can't read the text, let alone see the art. And if you're playing the Magic cards, I like the art and the text.
Awesome. That's we're all wrapped up. So I'm gonna go and edit this over the next weeks, months, who knows. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Hey, it's me from the future. After finishing editing this video, I just wanted to do a little rundown on what ended up being the top and bottom of this list. So for the bottom 5, it's actually going to be a bottom 6 here because we have Duskmourn Paranormal with the only 4 rating, and then we have 5 that are tied at a 5 rating. Those are the Comic-Con promos, the Duskmourn double exposure cards, Amonkhet Invocations, the Doctor Who TARDIS showcase, and the Outlaws of Thunder Junction wanted posters. And for the top 5 best frames and borders in all of Magic the Gathering, we have 3 tied at 14s. For these ones, we have the Classic Frame, the Ikoria Comic Book Showcase, and the Double Masters Full Arts. And then we have a 2-way tie for the top position with 2 15s. The Japanese Strixhaven Mystical Archives, and the Commander Masters Borderless Frame Break. That's it. That's the end. I hope you all enjoyed this video. See ya.